So growing my wealth really felt impossible. And so today I want to share a little bit about my journey and the 4 hurdles I had to overcome. That took, for some reason, years to overcome before I actually built wealth. But before that, I have a confession. I actually hit $100,000 in savings 8 years ago. This was about 2 years into working full-time. Throughout university, I had saved up a lot. I worked 3 different jobs, and it only took 2 years to save up to 100K, and I put all of that in the markets. And you can imagine this was like 8 years ago, right? And since then, the market has pretty much almost doubled. But for the following 6 years, my net worth would hover around $100,000. Nothing would change. And I never really thought too deeply into it. In a sense, I didn't really want to, because it felt scary. It would bring me feelings of shame. And it felt very severe. But it wasn't until 2 years ago, when I met my wife, then girlfriend, now wife, that I decided to take my finances a little bit more seriously. And in the last 2 years, I've doubled, right? A combination of market growth and disciplined saving has grown my wealth to my portfolio to $200,000 Canadian, and I really sat there and thought, man, if that's what I did in 2 years, what could have been possible if I sat down and did that for the last 8 years? And that's why I want to make this video, is because if you're someone that's struggling to grow wealth, like it feels impossible for you to do so, well then, first of all, you're not alone in that struggle. And second of all, maybe this video will offer you some insights. And so the first hurdle that I had to overcome was any excuse that depleted my bank account. And it's different for everyone. For me, it felt justified. I would buy courses, I would buy coaching, I would buy softwares for the business that I was eventually going to build. And ultimately, that would just cut into how much money I was saving. Nothing wrong with education. I mean, I'm a teacher myself, and I know school gets a bad rap, but I would say I do a pretty decent job educating my students, not just schooling them. But it was a mistake for me to not make saving non-negotiable, to make saving negotiable. And the reason was because I always thought I would make it back later. But in reality, I can't make back lost time. And you might be sitting there wondering, hey, I'm not going to start a business anytime soon. There's no way I'm going to buy courses or education or software. But the same thing happens when you're making a certain amount of money and you think you will continue to make that amount of money or more in the future. And so you're just like, I can save later. I want to enjoy today and take care of myself later, without really thinking that you actually have no control over the future. You can influence it, but you actually have no control over external unexpected events that might happen. And so it is in general prudent then to plan for the future and to prepare for the future, which often requires you to delay your gratification of present pleasures for future security. And when I realized how serious the consequences could be, I made it non-negotiable to save a certain amount of money every month, and for me that was $2,000. For you, it might be different. every single month. But play it out, right? That's something whenever I talk to people, even my students, about the behaviors and habits that they've engaged themselves in. It's well, what is going to happen 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now if you continue down this path of pretty much self-assured destruction of, in our case, finances. In their case, it might be self-control and discipline. And so think about that. The second mistake and hurdle that the second mistake that I kept making and the hurdle that I had to get over was trying to beat the market. And with social media, I know you always come across people that beat the market, but we can never attribute their reasons for beating the market back to their skill, because it really just could have been a coincidence. And with the amount of people that invest every single day in the stock market, of course, some will beat the market. And of course, we have a tendency to credit ourselves for our gains and to credit external reasons for our losses. And so when I did do investments, I remember buying an individual stock and being up 50%. This was like 7-8 years ago. And it wasn't just one stock too, I remember. And it was multiple stocks. It was iQIYI, a Chinese video streaming platform, which debuted around $16, like IPO. I don't remember the exact number, but it went up to like the mid-20s very, very quickly. And so I made like $10,000, $15,000 on that. It was when Equifax had that scandal of that data leak, and I was like, that's temporary. So I bought in, and it was up 30% over the next 3 or 4 months. Berkshire Hathaway was up, right? And I felt like a winner. I was like, I got this. And little did I know that was hubris. That was pride. And chasing after the next 50% gain is much harder than getting the first 50% gain. And the reason is because when I got the first 50%, I got lucky. And when I was chasing after the next 50%, I thought I was somebody in the face of the markets. And that's a surefire way of losing money, because you no longer are rational, right? And even when you are rational, you can still lose money just because there are too many uncontrollable variables that goes into the price action of a stock. And that if your conclusion is to buy a stock because you think it will go up in the future, then there are too many premises that need to be satisfied that you ultimately have to be uncertain of, because most of those premises are predicated on your ability to predict the future, and nobody can predict the future. And so rather than that, I had to shift to a mindset of what is a conclusion I can make that has premises that have high probabilities of being true. And my conclusion was that if I invest in the American stock market in general, then my only premise that I really need is that the American economy and the American dollar will continue to do reasonably well compared to cash in the bank, because that's my alternative, is not investing, or real estate over the long term, 10, 15, 20 years. And that bet I'm willing to make. And so in my former years, I valued high returns over reliable returns, and I ended up with neither. And it wasn't until I came up with my own wealth thesis, which a little bit of which I just shared with you, that I could stick to, that things then started to turn around for the better. And over the last 2 years, because I didn't touch the money, I just left it there, I let it grow over time. And that's not to say we shouldn't buy individual stocks, but now the reasons I buy individual stocks isn't to change my life and to revolutionize my financial future. It is simply to scratch an itch, if you will. It's to keep my tendencies to make irrational decisions in the market at bay by allowing myself to do so with a small sum of money of which I can afford to fully lose, which, like, that last factor is important because it allows you to make rational decisions. When you've invested money that you cannot afford to lose, you will be emotional and irrational with that money. You will check every night on the stock market. You will look for affirming news of your decisions to make you feel better about yourself and your decisions. And you will willfully ignore bad news because you do not want to face the truth. On that note, I want to move on to my third hurdle, and that was negligence as a result of shame. I thought things would just work out. I think it was about 3 years ago when I bought into Alibaba. Being in China, using Taobao so much, it's already ingrained into the habits of Chinese consumer lives. And so I thought, as the biggest company in China at that time, Alibaba had, probably due to COVID reasons, fallen from $300 a share to $120 a share. I did a quick discounted cash flow analysis. I don't know if I did it correctly now thinking back. And I thought, man, the stock is severely undervalued. And so I did what no one should do, the advice that I cautioned you against just 2 minutes ago. I put around $80,000, which was around, definitely more than half of my portfolio at that time, into Alibaba. And the stock over the next 3 months promptly dropped to around $80 a share, $70 a share, $68 a share, and it was in the 50s for a while. And I had an unrealized loss of $30, $40, $50,000. And it made me feel bad every time I looked at it, because I was telling my wife about how undervalued it was, how it would definitely go up. So much so that it gave me so much shame that I stopped paying attention altogether. I would check once in a while, and every time I would check, I would feel bad and about my decisions, because I thought I screwed up, but a sliver of hope, right? I still hung on. And as you listen to me speak on this topic, you can start to hear how irrational that decision was. And even as I make this video for you today, Alibaba is sitting at $136 a share. And so yes, I'm up like 15%. And maybe that's a reason why I'm now comfortable recording this video. But my rational side really tells me, hey, Leon, you should sell the stock. My irrational side tells me you were right all along, you should keep going. And I feel like that is only happening because I put a large sum of money into the stock. And back then, because the stock was down and I didn't want to look at it, it meant I stopped keeping track of my bank account and how it changed. I stopped looking at my investments, and I was left wondering a lot of the times when I did check, where did it all go? Where did all the money go? And I didn't know. I couldn't figure it out. And I felt disgusted every time I looked at my brokerage account. And it wasn't until a year ago, I don't remember exactly, around a year ago, when I decided to check over the years how much money I had put in to my investment account and how much money I had taken out of my investment account. And it turns out it was around $150,000. And just the thought that if I had been more careful, if I had kept track, if I had cared, I would at least have another $150,000 in the account. But no more of that, right? Now I have cash flow clarity. Now I am clear about how my money comes in, where it goes, how much goes out, and I check regularly. I've decided to take up the mantle of someone that faces the burden of reality head on, someone that has an accurate view of their financial situation. And with that, only with that, can one move forward and improve their financial situation. And the fourth hurdle was something that I didn't really thought would be a problem for me, and it was not having a compelling vision of the future. And I thought that would never have been a problem for me because I always had what I thought would be a compelling version of the future: financial freedom, location freedom, being able to travel anywhere, not having to work a 9-to-5. But if that was compelling enough, then you think 8 years I would have made progress towards the future. Instead, what it took was meeting my wife, her getting pregnant, and holding my son for the very first time, and looking at those little eyes, and growing as my son grows. I don't know if any of you are parents, but when you see a little baby trying his best to crawl, to stand, falling and trying again, not having this self-consciousness of weakness and failure and shame and the inner critic, just having a goal and pursuing it again and again. When you see that, you realize something, and you realize that you had it in you all along to be disciplined, to take action. And in seeing my son strive, it compelled me to strive myself and give him the future. And my wife, who labors daily, toils daily to take care of him, a future that I believe they deserve. And this future is so much more compelling than the self-centered future of financial freedom for me. And so it turns out a future that includes others and the ones you love, and you humbling yourself to give others a better life it turns out that kind of future is so much more compelling than the one you set for yourself. And so for the longest time, I didn't know what I was supposed to build towards. And so I wasn't building towards anything. And now I have so much more clarity about giving my family the best life possible, so much so that every day I think about what is one thing I can do to move forward, to take one step closer to my financial future, to my dream future, to pursue it, to actively take steps forward, to move one step at a time and not be deterred by the fact that it may take years, it may take pain, and it may take suffering to get to the point of satisfaction and prosperity. And for some reason, understanding that and being in pursuit of that, as painful and as uncertain as it may feel, does give off a sense of joy when you take action towards it. And so what does that mean? Well, it means I had to, get my finances together. I had to alter my beliefs, change what I believed, and I had to adopt a philosophy that enabled me to build wealth instead of destroy it. And so for you, if you feel like you can't build wealth, chances are there's more to figure out aside from the latest tactic, the latest options trading strategy, or the coolest thing to invest in right now. Not being able to build wealth now has more to do with how you think and who you are than it does with not knowing what to do. Think about that. And as you do so, if you found value in this video, do hit the like button, subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments. Do you agree, disagree? I'll catch you in the next one.